What's going on, everybody? Here today with another Bodhi Tree mental health video. On this channel, I talk about my own journey through severe mental illness, mainly obsessive compulsive disorder and severe anxiety. I want to talk today about coaches and therapists. There's a conversation going on right now online that I think is it's a great conversation. It's a conversation that's maybe going to bring a lot of negative emotions, up for a lot of people, and maybe there's going to be it's a conversation that needs to be had about coaches, mainly people that are online that are uncredentialed, most of them claiming that they have overcame anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder, all right? Those one set of people versus therapists, all right? And these are people that are licensed people that have credentials, that went to school, are supposed to have supposed training. And really, like, the post, it seems like, is like, coaches or therapists, like it's an either or. And apparently there's been some people that's had bad experiences with both. So I just want to I'm just going to be completely blunt and completely frank about what I think about this topic. Coaches versus therapists. Is one better than the other or whatnot? What is the role that, people that are uncredentialed, that overcome or claim to overcome, severe mental illness, what do they really bring to the table, and are they doing more good than bad, etc., etc.? So jump back to like when I first realized that I had a serious problem. I realized I developed, obsessive compulsive disorder, which it took me a few months of like nonstop crazy anxiety to even realize like that I was really, in a bad way. But basically, I started Googling my thoughts, and I started, this term of pure O and OCD started to pop up. And I started to realize like, oh shit, you got OCD. Now at the same time, I started getting on YouTube, and the first people that I found on YouTube was Ali Grayman and Mark Freeman. I'm going to address people by name because people got problems with what I'm going to say. They can go ahead and comment below. All right. But Ali Grayman and Mark Freeman were the first people that I found on YouTube. Now, even though I found these coaches, my whole thing is like, I need to go see a therapist. I need to see a professional. Like, I was just learning about OCD from these coaches. All right. Now, the first therapist that I went to go see, 20 years in practice, said he knew a lot about OCD, said he had worked with people with OCD, told me when I told him I was having all these obsessive thoughts and anxiety, that I needed to just go take a college class. And that was it. After an hour session, I mean, basically, he didn't mention any ERP. There was no real CBT. I mean, honestly, we just had a talk. That was it for an hour. $150 an hour chat. And pretty much this was an in-person one. From that point, because I'm a truck driver and I drive all the time, I couldn't, I got onto these apps with other licensed. I was on Talkspace and I was on BetterHelp. And probably between those two apps, in the course of my last 3 years, I've probably seen about a dozen therapists, licensed clinicians. And a lot of these people that are suggested or whatever, a lot of these people that are like, for instance, if you go to Talkspace or you go to BetterHelp, they will pair you with someone that is claimed to be trained in anxiety and OCD. Okay, these are considered to be, is this an OCD specialist per se? No, but these are people that claim to have the training. All right, so it's, they claim to have the training for anxiety, right, and OCD. Well, anyways, so I seen a dozen of them. I mean, man, it was just the whole thing was, I wish I could say it was a joke, but it wasn't nothing about it funny. I got no help. No one understood anything. And now, as someone who's, a really big practitioner of mindful living, and I don't meditate, I just live mindfully, but as someone that feels they really understand the mechanics of the human mind, I can't even say that any of these therapists I spoke to even understood how the mind even works at all. In fact, I would remember having conversations with different therapists about things that I was learning along my way in regards to mindfulness and meditation and learning to accept my thoughts and feelings. And they were clueless about that. They were locked in their own little world. And so they really had no frame of reference for what I was really talking about. Now, this was my experience with therapists. So the only people that I ever got any real information, I'll go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and give my opinion on it. Fuck it, yo. I'm gonna talk about the three biggest names in the game: Ali Grayman, Mark Freeman, and Robert Bray of OCD Recovery. All three of these people, as far as I know, they never went to school. As far as I know, they don't have any credentials, all right? They all have pretty big platforms on YouTube and on social media. And they all claim to have recovered from OCD and anxiety, right? Now, like I said, when I first started, going to see other therapists, my intentions was to get professional help. That was my intentions. Not for my mentors and coaches to be people that I never met, that I had never met. I've never got any sessions or prayed or paid. I've never talked to anything beyond maybe a few messages online with any of these people that I'm going to talk to. I've never paid for their services. This is just their content that they've offered online. Like with Allie Grayman, she was really the first person to introduce me to ERP. I don't keep up with her channel the way that I used to, but at least a couple years ago, it was just basically ERP, and she'd have a lot of videos and she'd have a lot of content that would come out almost daily. And if it wasn't for Allie, I don't even know where I would be, to be honest with you. Allie, I don't know. I can't credit any one of these people that I'm going to talk to with my full recovery. I don't. I said this before in a post. I don't think anybody has the complete, no person. I mean, I could sit here and say as someone that I feel has reached a point, I feel like I know, what the complete, way is, OCD treatment or whatever, but what worked for me may not work for somebody else. Or maybe it would work for you, but the path that you got to chart is different than the path that I charted. It may be different steps. But Allie introduced me to ERP, and her platform I found was extremely important in me realizing that other people were going through this. And, I never watched videos compulsively, but her videos definitely, just her talking, just somebody out there talking about this made me feel less alone, because we all know as OCD sufferers how alone that we feel. So I feel like Allie really stresses ERP, and I think that's important. Now with Mark Freeman, this is somebody else earlier on that I really credit him introducing the biggest thing and the biggest game changer for me in long-term improving mental health, which is mindfulness. I've never gotten into acceptance and commitment therapy. I just figured out what meditation was, figured out how to tell when I'm lost in thought, when I'm living in the present moment, just continue to just live in the present moment as much as possible. And in fact, this whole mindfulness thing really led to me on a journey into a whole lot of other things, like some Buddhist philosophy, other spiritual teachers, I've read a lot of the big popular books, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, Rupert Spira books, like other bunch of people that aren't even, it's the same shit. And that's a big thing that I realized, that this acceptance commitment therapy, this is nothing new. This is just mindfulness with some expanded other stuff on it, and then just slapped a label on it saying that this is some type of therapy. Mindfulness was the game changer for me. And you don't have to see anybody. This mindfulness is something that's been around. It's been practiced for thousands of years. And I credit Mark Freeman for really introducing that. And if I had to do anything on my channel, I try and introduce mindful living in a way that is actually more authentic to a lot of the other mainstream traditions, or whatever you could call it, spirituality or Buddhism. But Mark really helped me introduce me to all that, and really his videos did such a phenomenal job of breaking down. I remember the one video that he did, and I think it's the best video he ever did, which was talking about the banana and the rat wheel. And this video was a game changer for me. It was an absolute game changer for me. You know what I mean? I really understood conceptually how the mind actually works. And no therapist has ever done that. I've never heard any therapist say that or understand that. So Mark has done a really good job on that front. I want to talk about the last person, which is OCD recovery, Robert Bray. Now, Rob, I never saw Rob, and I'm not going to say that I agree with everything that Rob says, because I don't. I don't agree with every single thing, or at least the language that he uses around the recovery journey is different than mine. It's different than mine. But I will say this. I know people personally who have found a lot of help in his methods. And I don't think that necessarily meditation and mindfulness, especially in the beginning of the journey, is going to work for most people. And I think he's a really big advocate in changing, not just, changing the way people think, looking at our beliefs. And I feel like he's a kind of almost like a philosophy guy in a lot of ways. And he brings a lot of different perspectives and a way to look at our thoughts, a way to look at our life, and how do we look at our fears. And, I feel like if anything, Rob has done a great job of putting together a community full of people that, are there for each other. And so I credit him with that. So, when it comes to any of these coaches out here, these are the biggest three. I will say this. I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for these coaches online. That's why I'm making this video. I wouldn't be. And there's no one of these coaches that I think has it figured out like 100%. Even me as someone that feels like I'm far enough along into my journey to where I would feel definitely comfortable, sharing what I've learned. My way through the woods is not for everybody else. Maybe not everybody else is going to just, I'm not into ACT. I'm not into ERP. I'm just into living mindfully. That's not for everybody. Maybe for somebody else, it's looking at their beliefs and disputing their beliefs or trying to work on, the way they're thinking. You know what I mean? If that's working for them, then that's working for them. Or maybe for somebody else, it's just ERP or whatever. But none of these coaches or nobody, even if you've recovered from OCD, doesn't mean that you understand. Like there is no authority, in my opinion, which I feel is as good as anybody else's opinion. There's no authority on OCD treatment. I don't give a shit where it comes from. I've seen way too many therapists, psychiatrists, medications, read enough literature out there to know that the medical community in and of itself has no more credentials than anybody else, in my opinion. In fact, I take the word off somebody who's suffering from OCD and what's worked from them over a therapist or a doctor off the street given any other day. That's just my opinion. It's worked for me. And I feel like these coaches, the ones that are on these big platforms, like I said, I can find beef. I could sit here and I could pick apart different things that I think that each one of them, has a little bit wrong in the pipeline because I didn't see things that way. That wasn't my personal experience with the advice that they were giving. But overall, it was them that helped me get to where I'm at today. That's it. And continue to progress as well. It was all three of them. You know what I mean? And so, I wanted to address one more thing in this video, which is this app called NoCD, which is like basically like a BetterHelp, like it's a talk space. It's like an online app where you have access to good therapists. This is a really good app. This is a really good app. You know what I mean? I've never sat down with a NoCD therapist, but I've watched plenty of their podcasts, and I think that what they're doing is great. I think it's phenomenal. It's something that wasn't available to me three years ago in 2018. There was no NoCD app in which I could go sit down with a licensed clinical therapist that understood ERP. So I think that is great. But let me also say that as someone that is pretty far along in OCD recovery and understands the mechanics of the mind and how OCD works, I don't think from their podcast, from their free information, that they have it all figured out either. This is my own personal experience. I don't think that they have it all figured out either. You know what I mean? I think for a lot of people, and this is something that I think really we have to face as a community, and I made a video on this. You know what I mean? I'm going to close on this, and this is the reality. OCD is an extremely serious disorder. And in fact, when you have the disorder, until you start to really, really get better from it, you don't even realize how severe that it is. The how stuck you really are in a reality in which there's no open doors. You know what I mean? And it's a horrible disorder. And we have to realize as a community that there's going to be some of us that fully recover, and there's going to be a lot of us who get to a better place in management. There's going to be some of us that's going to be stuck pretty much at rock bottom long term. And we have to realize as a community that nobody has all the answers. You know what I mean? Nobody has all the answers. Not the doctors, not the coaches, not me. You know what I mean? And so we have to realize that everybody's different. We're all, this whole concept of recovery is a new thing. But it's also important to realize that recovery is defined differently depending on who you're talking to. It's defined differently by who you're talking to. And we're just all going to get to different stages in this journey. You know what I mean? But I think that we all, like, as a community, in regards to like coaches and therapists or no CD or whatever, the main thing is that it's important that we have discussions, and it's important that we have these conversations. And it's important that if there's people out there that feel that they've been harmed by coaches or whatever, speak up on it. Put out your own video. You know what I mean? Like, people, you know what I mean? I know that's hard. Like, oh, this isn't the place to do it, air out dirty laundry or whatever. But, there's nothing wrong with it, There's nothing. We have to have conversations as a community because, that's really it. For most of us out here with OCD or whatnot, I mean, that's all we have is these platforms, these different pages, people that we meet online. And for the most part, we're living in isolation with a serious disorder and an extremely strange journey to get better from the situation. And like I said, nobody understands this 100%. No one understands OCD treatment 100%, and we all need to just be honest about that. And as a community, we can start to learn from each other. And that's the thing with these OCD coaches, is that I would tell anybody, hey, don't sit here, don't freaking, Ali and Mark and Rob, this is not Jesus Christ, these are just regular people. Their journey is their own. And I would hope if they see this video not to think that they know everything about OCD either, and they know, they have all the answers, but I would tell anybody that they're great resources, and to, listen to these coaches, and, you decide, you try and see what works for you. I've been working on recovery for 3 years. It's not a sprint. This is a long-term game. You know what I mean? So this is my opinion. I defend coaches in a lot of ways because I'm only better because of what I've learned from Ali, from Mark, from Rob, and maybe a few other smaller people along the way. So I hope this video finds you well. Please like, share, subscribe if you want to hear me talking about my own personal opinions on mental health issues. Anyways, later, y'all.